I'm so excited to announce that it is officially here. Real Food for Fertility, my brand new book that I co-authored with Lily Nichols. If you're ready to embark on the incredible journey of motherhood, there's no time like the present to prepare your body for the most vital role it will ever play, the creation of new life. In Real Food for Fertility, we explore the power of nutrition to optimize your fertility and ensure a healthy start for your future child. But this book isn't just about nutrition. We delve into topics like the menstrual cycle, fertility awareness, birth control, stress management, toxins, artificial reproductive technology, and the most common reproductive health challenges affecting your fertility. Let Real Food for Fertility be your roadmap and trusted companion as you take the first step toward building your family. In a world where more couples are facing fertility challenges, your nutrition and lifestyle choices can make all the difference. Head over to realfoodforfertility.com for additional details. You can grab a copy of our book on Amazon. We currently have our paperback and ebook versions, and of course, we will be working on our audiobook version in the near future, and we'll keep you posted as to when that is available. So again, realfoodforfertility.com, and let's go ahead and jump into today's episode. This is the Fertility Friday podcast, episode number 515. In today's episode, I am actually diving into current events. Interestingly, I don't tend to watch a lot of television or news, and I don't tend to follow what's going on. But there was an interesting article that keeps getting brought to my attention that the Washington Post dropped recently, and I thought that I would jump in and talk about it. So here goes. All right, so earlier this week, the Washington Post released an article, Women Are Getting Off Birth Control Amid Misinformation Explosion. What follows in this article is just a whole lot of gaslighting, and ironically, they're talking about misinformation that women are getting about their cycles, and they're apparently the purveyors of the most of that misinformation. So I'm going to go ahead and read a couple of quotes from this article, and then we can kind of get into just a bit of a discussion around what they're actually saying. Here's how the article starts off. Search for birth control on TikTok or Instagram, and a cascade of misleading videos vilifying hormonal contraception appear. Young women blaming their weight gain on the pill, right-wing commentators claiming that some birth control can lead to infertility, testimonials complaining of depression and anxiety. Instead, many social media influencers recommend natural alternatives such as timing sex to menstrual cycles, a less effective birth control method that doctors warn result in unwanted pregnancies in a country where abortion is now banned or restricted in nearly half the states. Physicians say, and I'm continuing to read the article, they're seeing an explosion of birth control misinformation online targeting a vulnerable demographic, people in their teens and early 20s, who are more likely to believe what they see on their phones because of algorithms that feed them a stream of videos reinforcing messages often divorced from scientific evidence. While doctors say hormonal contraception, which includes birth control pills and intrauterine devices, is safe and effective, they worry the profession's long-standing lack of transparency about some of the serious but rare side effects has left many patients seeking information from unqualified communities online. Okay, so that's how they jump in. And the article just continues on and on and on this way, basically saying that all of these crazy people online are just complaining about these side effects that are so rare and barely happen. And all of these unqualified people online are talking about birth control. And, obviously they're just totally misinformed and there's no scientific evidence and blah, 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 on and on and on and on and on. And of course, none of these people have official credentials with, medical credentials, and therefore everything they're saying must be false. These poor young women must know that there are absolutely no side effects related to the pill. And all of these complaints are just completely unfounded and insane. So it's really interesting. If you haven't read it, if this is something that interests you, I would suggest to have a read. if for no other reason than just to kind of reinforce and highlight many of the themes that we have been talking about on this podcast for so many years. This article is an example of the reason why it is so difficult for women to A, be believed by their medical professionals when they share information about the side effects that they've been experiencing. Beyond being believed, it makes it difficult for them to even be taken seriously. And how many women who are listening right now, so if you're listening right now, how many of you have literally had your doctor ask you, oh, did you hear about that from Dr. Google? So, this article really highlights some of the key challenges that women experience. And also the fact that medical professionals don't take these, the side effects are not in women's heads. You can simply look at the hundreds of research papers, thousands of research papers. The pill is a drug that has been around since 1960. And one of the positives of that, at least with the birth control pill and its various iterations, is that there's a ton of research on it. So unlike some of the newer drugs that may have recently been brought into the market, the category of hormonal contraception has been alive and well since the 60s. And so for that reason, it's actually not always that difficult to find research on it. So at this stage, for any so-called professional, credentialed media outlet to be suggesting that these side effects are simply just a figment of the imagination of TikTok influencers, right? And everything they're saying about it is just complete phooey and hocus pocus is frankly just lazy journalism, because with the birth control pill in all of its iterations, it really only takes about 5 minutes or less of a search on Google Scholar to find hundreds, if not thousands, of articles detailing the whole wide variety and gamut of side effects that women experience on birth control. And the way that they've steered the article is that they're kind of highlighting the fact that some of the more egregious side effects are more rare. So the side effect of death from blood clots or stroke or pulmonary embolism, that is not something that happens to every woman. The actual numbers compared to how many women use contraceptives are quite small. But when we're looking at the most common side effects that they immediately dismissed in their article, such as anxiety and depression, that's much more common. And some of these side effects are some of the most common reasons why women are coming off of the birth control options, or why they switch from one version to the next. There's plenty of studies that have looked at the reasons why women discontinue their use of birth control. And the studies show that about half of women who are put on the pill come off of that particular brand of pill within the first year of using it due to their dissatisfaction with the side effects. And I've spoken about this before many times. I've shared many research articles on the podcast and my writing. In the Fifth Vital Sign, I share a study where the researchers were looking at the side effects, but their intention with the study was actually to determine why women were complaining about the birth control, to identify if there was something that they could, pick out about those women. And the researchers were, discussing how difficult it is for providers to recommend the most effective methods, while also being transparent about the side effects without discouraging them from using it. So the whole article was like, oh, these poor doctors that have to balance telling women the truth about the contraceptives without discouraging them from using it because there are these side effects. So there's a huge problem when it comes to the birth control pill, because the medical establishment has already made up their mind that the pill is completely fine, it's completely safe, it's effective, any risks are super small, and the benefits clearly outweigh the risks, and blah, 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 right? So, and any woman who's complaining about it, she's just misinformed, right? And so they've already made up their mind that women just need to shut up and take it, in their opinion, right? And so it means that whenever women have issues with it and talk about it and try to reach out and discuss it and put those ideas into the world, they're immediately shut down. And so here you have women speaking out in kind of the only avenue that is open to them, right? So these women who are speaking out on TikTok and on Instagram, and women like me who have been speaking about this through podcast avenues and through book writing, blog posts, whatever you want to say. And in particular, the women like myself who are fully jumping on scientific resources. So it's not like I'm just talking out my neck for fun. I actually cite sources that discuss this in a scientific manner, look for peer-reviewed research, identifying the rates of discontinuation and things like that. If you're curious, Chapter 7 of the Fifth Vital Sign goes into that in extensive detail. And also, coincidentally, Chapter 7 of Real Food for Fertility also discusses the pill at great length. So these are resources that, for example, I've cultivated, but again, heavily researched because, like I mentioned, the birth control pill has been around for decades. And so there's no shortage of scientific research backing up what everyone is saying about the side effects. It is no secret that many women experience anxiety and depression and low libido and mood changes, panic attacks because of the birth control pill. They even have this, I'm going to read part of what they said here. They made a comment about nutrient deficiencies as well. And I found that to be really interesting, like in a super dismissive way. So they're going off about this woman who've never heard of, Nicole Bendayan. I'm sure I'm not saying her name wrong. So they're going off about her because they're saying she has over 1 million followers combined on TikTok and Instagram, and for her holistic health coaching business, and her, TikToks about getting off of birth control and becoming a cycle syncing nutritionist. She's teaching women to live in tune with their menstrual cycles. I mean, how dare her? It's garnered over 10 million views. Look at this crazy person. And, they're quoting her and things like that. And I'm going to quote from the article. Bendayan has told her followers that birth control may deplete magnesium, vitamins B, C, and E, and zinc levels. She charges hundreds of dollars for a 3-month virtual program that includes analyses of blood panels for what she calls hormone imbalances. It's so interesting how they can write these articles and say these things as if there aren't like just droves of scientific research studies that verify. This is not some sort of random thing about the nutrient deficiencies that this woman made up in her spare time. It only takes less than 5 minutes. Anyone can do this. Anyone can go and find scientific resources. You can go to PubMed, you can go to Google Scholar, you can go to whatever if you're a student, you can go onto your student research options and look through peer-reviewed research papers. It really wouldn't take you more than 5 minutes to look up nutrient deficiencies associated with hormonal contraceptives to find a slew of studies that talk at length about the link between the pill and nutrient deficiencies. So, I mean, it's all you have to do is open the insert or search the insert. If you're taking a certain brand of contraceptive, just literally search for the brand and the prescribing information. So you can pick it. If you're taking Yaz, you can type Yaz prescribing information or whatever your favorite brand is today that you're taking. You can look it up. And in the actual insert that they're mandated by law to provide you, they have to say what it does, including these nutrient deficiencies. So I'm going to kind of calm down at some point. But you see my point here. It's so interesting how they can spin these stories and they're making it look like this woman is just lying to these women and taking advantage of them so she can steal their money. But they're not actually acknowledging that she's pointing out scientifically proven data about hormonal contraceptives. So either the author of this article just didn't actually do their research, or they're just kind of being a mouthpiece for the pharmaceutical industry to really kind of downplay the very real concerns that these women are having about contraceptives. Popping into today's episode with an incredible resource to share. Today's episode is brought to you by my top resource for women's health professionals, How to Interpret Virtually Any Chart Your Client Throws at You. Our new ebook breaks down complex chart interpretation into an easy step-by-step process. Head over to fertilityfriday.com/chart to snag your complimentary copy today. That's fertilityfriday.com/chart. Now let's go ahead and jump back into today's episode. Now, I'm glad that they didn't single me out because I don't necessarily want to be thrown in the media, thrown under the bus for the same exact things I've been saying for, 2 decades. But I find it to be particularly interesting, given that I would fall into the category of somebody who is sharing information about contraception. And they mischaracterize it because when women are highlighting these issues with birth control pills, there's a variety of ways that it can be done. So I can't speak to how, all of these so-called Instagram and TikTok influencers are sharing their information. But what I can share is how I've shared the information over the years. And my main initiative all of these years has always been to help to inform women of the risks and potential benefits of their chosen contraceptive method, to inform them about all of the options. So you'll notice how they heavily downplayed cycle tracking. They didn't even name it. They don't want to write fertility awareness tracking. And they are quick to say doctors don't recommend this because it's unreliable, right? But again, the person who's writing the article has likely never learned anything about this method. And so they're able to just be a mouthpiece for whatever organization or whatever is going on here without ever really looking into it. And so again, you have a situation where women themselves are saying, look, I had a negative experience with this. I took this drug and this is what happened to me. I was on this drug for this long and then I had this experience. You find somebody online who says, you know what? I've been researching this and there's a lot of data to support your experience. Did you know that X% of women experience this exact same side effect that you did? Did you know that you could look at the drug insert and actually see a lot of these side effects that you've experienced because the manufacturers themselves know that this is what happens when many women use the drug? Did you know that there are other alternatives, that if hormonal contraceptives don't sit well with you, you could actually turn to another potential option so that you would be able to have effective birth control without necessarily having to rely on hormones. So this article is implying that by women getting together, sharing their experiences, looking to the science to see what it says, reporting on said science, and actually listening and believing other women who've had similar experiences, that there's something wrong with that. This is not okay, because God forbid women get together and talk about their own experiences and search for solutions that better serve them, right? How dare they do that without seeking medical advice? No woman on earth can ever make a decision about her body without first double checking it with a medical professional, because obviously she's unqualified to even name and identify any issues that are happening in her own health. I don't know, man. I didn't really plan to jump on a soapbox for this episode, but given the topic of it and my level of indignation with regards to this article, I suppose this was the inevitable outcome. So I just thought I would jump in and comment on this episode, or comment on this article by the Washington Post. I just think it's laughable, and I'm sure they've gotten some backlash. Who knows? I doubt they will retract it or update it. I think that the person who wrote it did make a nominal attempt to kind of acknowledge the fact that there are side effects. And maybe that in and of itself is even progress. Because we're at the stage now where if they did come out with an article and basically said there are no side effects, that couldn't work because there's too much evidence. It's mountains of evidence. The pill has been out for, like I said, multiple decades, and we have thousands, if not tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of research articles on the wide variety of issues. What I'll do is I can link to some of my previous podcast episodes where I've talked about some of these things, where the interview where I interviewed Dr. Ross Pelton, who's a pharmacist who wrote a whole book on the pill. He called it The Pill Problem. And he's a pharmacist. He was trained in all the drug interactions, and he wrote a whole book on how many nutrients the pill interferes with, and questions why women aren't even just not told right out of the gate that the pill has all of these interactions. It changes the way we process all of these different nutrients. Why are they not even told to take certain supplements, like a vitamin or something? Because we know that it depletes B vitamins and zinc and all of these other nutrients. So it's so interesting that this article can jump in there and be like, no, that's all in their head. These stupid women keep talking about this stuff that isn't relevant. It's all misinformation. I can barely say it with a straight face. Yeah, I don't even know what to say at this point about that stuff. And then for all of those women, can you imagine the millions of women who've had, I'm not saying every woman who's taken birth control has had a negative experience. Obviously, that's not true. Many women take the birth control pill and they don't report a negative experience at all. But the statistics show us that it's a lot. It's like half, like at least half within that first year are dissatisfied. They experience some side effect that's bad enough to get them to come off of it. So obviously, there's a significant percentage of women who do have a hard time on the pill and who do disagree with it in whatever fashion and who can't even continue to take it. I've sat around speaking in my group programs with an entire group of women, each of them who are telling me that they felt trapped on this medication. They went from one type of pill to another, to an IUD, to a this, to a that. And every time they had different side effects, but none of them were good. And they eventually reached the end of their rope and they felt like there was nothing they could do. And they were so fortunate to find that there was fertility awareness, a non-hormonal method that did not cause any side effects, to give them that option to actually be able to come off of this contraceptive method. You know, I think it's just sad that you actually have people out there actively trying to prevent women from accessing this type of information. It is crazy. It is absolutely crazy. It's also crazy to assume that every single woman is going to be completely satisfied with her birth control method. And it's also a little bit crazy to be recommending that women not question a medication that literally has death as a potential side effect. Because as I said in the fifth vital sign, when you eat chicken, you know, if you were to have a banana or whatever, it's not like one of the side effects is potential death, like blood clots and stroke and pulmonary embolism and whatever. But with the pill, there is a percentage of women who, when they take it as directed, are going to literally die. Like it's a fact. And when I was interviewed for the Business of Birth Control after that documentary came out, I mean, it showed you, they interviewed actual family members of women who died in their 20s because they took the pill as directed. So it's interesting how we always want to gloss over this point. Now, again, I don't say this information to say no one take the pill. I took the pill when I was in high school. So it's not to say that that's my point. And anyone who's been listening for a while knows that that's not my point. But I share this information because it's important for us to be able to have a conversation about it. It is crazy to me that anybody who questions this medication, cites reputable science about it, is going to be told that it's just misinformation and they shouldn't be talking about it, when we're not even at a stage where it can be denied. There's so much evidence. There's landslides of evidence. There's each chapter I've written in any of my books about the pill has over 200 citations. So this is not hearsay. I always find it interesting that people get upset when you show them facts and data. I think it's hilarious because don't shoot the messenger. I mean, it's not me who created this drug, and it's not me who did the peer-reviewed study of all these women who took it and discovered that all of the women who take it have a significant deficiency in these B vitamins. I mean, that's just a fact. That's just a thing that happens, and they know that it happens. And similarly with some of the other side effects. So this whole situation is very interesting. This article, like I said, is very interesting. And I suppose it's their attempt at trying to redirect women to what they would consider to be appropriate sources. But on the other hand, for all the women who do have negative side effects on birth control, who then seek support from their medical health professional, these are the women who are doing what they're supposed to do. They're doing what they were told to do. You know, they have this issue. They were told to talk to their doctor if they have an issue. How many women have had a health issue, reproductive health issue with their hormonal birth control, and they do what they're supposed to do? They go to their medical doctor and they say, look, I'm having an issue with it, who are literally told it's in their head. Don't worry about it. It's normal. Just keep taking it. You know, we'll switch you to another one, whatever. But they're not believed. They're not listened to. They're not provided with an actual explanation as to why they're experiencing these side effects. They often leave with a sense of hopelessness or helplessness. Many of these women are going to multiple practitioners and none of them are taking them seriously. And then we have articles like this that are throwing it in their face that you're not allowed to talk to anybody else. So you go to your doctor and sometimes, a lot of the times, the doctor doesn't help you, but they're saying, but you should never go to anybody else. So it's like us or no one. Even if we don't help you, you're still not allowed to go to anyone else and get a different perspective. And no one else on earth could ever know anything about this drug only the medical professionals are allowed to talk about it. So apparently no one else is capable of reading a research article or talking about a research article or interviewing women, hearing what they actually say about their experience and reporting on it. It's only the medical doctors that are allowed to talk about the pill, right? So anyways, I will leave that there. I hope that you enjoyed today's episode. It's a little bit ranty. I feel like maybe it's a long time coming. I don't know. Maybe it was just time for a good old fashioned Lisa rant. But for whatever reason, that is what happened today. So like I said, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you found it interesting and you can think of someone who would also find it interesting, feel free to share the episode. The link for today's episode is fertilityfriday.com/515. So fertilityfriday.com/515. As I've already mentioned, if this topic interests you and you are wanting to dive into the actual data, so not just random chit chat, apparently uninformed misinformation about the topic, but if you're actually wanting to dive into what the research has to say, I would highly encourage you to read The Fifth Vital Sign, particularly chapters 7 and 8. Those chapters address hormonal contraceptives in detail with all the citations listed for those of you who are really nerdy like myself and want to dive deeper into that information. And of course, Real Food for Fertility, chapter 7, does a deep dive into, again, what the science has to say about hormonal contraceptives and the potential impact it can have on fertility. So with that said, I hope you have a wonderful weekend whenever you're tuning into the show. And of course, as always, until next time, be well and happy charting. And that's a wrap. If you're loving our FAM research series, then I know you'll love our Fertility Awareness Mastery Mentorship Program. It's a 9-month immersive experience that will completely transform the way you work with clients, allowing you to not only teach fertility awareness to your clients, but to use the menstrual cycle as a vital sign and diagnostic tool in your women's health practice. Head over to fertilityfriday.com/famlive to join the waiting list and be the first to know when registration opens up again. There's no program like this offered anywhere. Transform your practice in 9 months. Head over to fertilityfriday.com/FAMMLIVE.